Oh yeah.
Hello, Internet. I'm Casey. I'm here with the Cinema Joes. I'm here with Noah and Justin. We're going to
Joe.
talk
Or
today
Joe.
about um the what?
Cloud
Talk today about
Atlas.
Cloud Atlas. No, I knew you said something. You threw me off. Cloud Atlas. Is it
Yes.
a good movie? It's been a very divisive film. Some
Oh
people say
yes.
it's one of a master. I don't know if you want to call it a masterpiece, but um, they say it was an Oscar snub last year. It deserved a lot more, at least nominations. Whereas other people
Some
think
people say it was
it was.
racist.
So, we're going to talk about that today. Noah here is the biggest proponent for the movie, so I'll hand off the reins to Noah. Noah, what did you think
Okay.
about Cloud Atlas?
Okay. Well, as Casey pointed out, and unlike Casey, because we've discussed this before, I do think that the movie is a modern masterpiece. I think it's one of the better, more ambitious movies of at least of the past few years. Um, and I like it for a number of reasons. I like the creative way that it uses one cast basically to, in a straightforward way, play through a series of stories that are occurring over hundreds and hundreds of years of history. The exact amount is up to interpretation because with the final stories, they don't necessarily make it clear exactly when they're occurring relating to our timelines. So I like the creativity of using a single cast and getting creative in terms of using makeup to make a point about the superficiality of conventions, of boundaries, of dividing lines between peoples, between gender, between race, and how, in the long stretch of time, those boundaries just really aren't that important. Um, so I think that's the biggest thing that draws me to the movie. I like its overall message. I like its message of um, it is a very optimistic story, or the movie at least is decidedly optimistic. I like the message of boundaries being conventions and not necessarily being anything that actually exists outside of our own minds. That's something that I very much agree with personally. So that appeals to me, and I really think that the way they made the movie, which is a noted difference from the book. In the book, you get the first half of each of the first five stories, and then all of the sixth story. By the way, spoiler alert to anyone seeing this who has not seen the movies yet. We're going to be discussing everything. So
Spoilers.
yeah.
Um,
So then we get all of the sixth story, and then the second half of each of the stories, ending with the last half of the first story. The
for any of
movie,
you literary experts out there, it's a construct called, I believe it's pronounced chiasm or something like that.
I'm not sure.
Where you
Um,
it's really a mirror image around a centerpiece. So
yeah,
like Noah was saying, you have one story bookending the rest of the story. So one story, the second story, the third story, and then the middle piece. I think I miscounted, but you get the idea.
yeah,
It's a really ancient literary
yeah.
structure.
Yeah,
And
chiasmus.
the movie, this is really the big change with the movie. The movie changes that by breaking up all the stories, so you're following all six simultaneously. And I get how that could lose some people, but me personally, I think it works like gangbusters, and I love it. I love following all six simultaneously, and I love watching it with people who have not seen it before and seeing them react to all the jumps that take place. So that's my opinion in a nutshell on the movie. And so now we'll bounce it across to Justin, who has just recently seen the movie. Casey and I have both saw it a while ago. Justin, I think just saw it today.
Yes, yes. Yeah, this is my first real experience with this. I purposely did not read the book because I wanted the experience of just watching the movie for the first time and getting a sense of you know, getting a sense of the themes and the characters and I gotta say I really did enjoy it a lot. It's interesting because there were certain things about it that well I wouldn't say they were daunting. I would say I was actually really looking forward to this, but I had heard that the movie was very long, which honestly compared to some of the things I've seen is not like it's really not that bad.
And it didn't really
Um,
drag like some long movies tend to.
considering I just watched Titanic recently, um, which I actually like, I must admit. But anyway, I like this so much more. Um, I also had heard that it was like confusing with the different narratives. I gotta be honest, I really didn't have a problem with that. And
Yeah, I
because of
think
the
it's like
parallel,
I think it's like Inception or The Matrix, where as long as you're paying attention and you're awake, I really don't see how you could have a problem following everything.
yeah, and because of the parallels between the different stories, there wasn't. You could actually, if you were maybe confused about one story, going on to the next story might actually illuminate something in the previous story.
Hmm.
Which gets into this whole idea of that, like you were saying, Noah, of the lack of boundaries. So we're not just talking about boundaries between people and between times. We're talking about boundaries between stories, and these are very parallel kind of stories. So yeah, I liked it. I was never bored. I didn't feel confused. I really felt like you just had to kind of be paying attention. Um, I will say I thought certain sections worked better than others. Um, I think it's interesting that the way they broke this up, the directors and screenwriters, you had the Wachowskis doing the first segment in the Pacific, and then also doing the last two in Hawaii and in Neo Seoul. And then you had Tom Tickford doing the one in Germany, the one in what do you call it? The one in New York in the 70s, I believe.
With the nuclear reactor?
No,
Yeah,
it's
with the nuclear reactor.
California.
I think that's San
California.
Francisco.
It's somewhere in California. I forget the city.
Okay.
California, and then other two shows are in England.
But you're right. If you just from the movie, it's hard to tell. But you're right about the time period. It's
Yeah.
early 70s, late 60s.
It's funny because like I remember the time period very well. I'm not remembering the location.
Yeah. I don't think it's ever even referenced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what I really like, I feel like
it's not a big deal.
No, it's not.
yeah. I feel like on the whole, and we could maybe get into this, but on the whole, I feel like I enjoyed the form of the film more than I enjoyed the content necessarily. Not that I
That's
didn't
interesting.
enjoy the content, but that I felt like if you took any one of these stories, I'm not sure they could really stand on their own. So I really do feel like the form helps hold it together, and I guess that the stories themselves and a lot of the message I didn't feel like were anything really new. So I guess in that sense, I didn't feel like it was compelling in a very philosophical or emotional way. I guess I'd say more emotionally, I felt a little bit distant from pretty much every story. There's some more than others, I'd say. That's not, again, I don't want to, like, I do want to say I did enjoy this, but I did feel that kind of distance from these people, because I feel like there was kind of a lack of specificity, and you have a lot of characters speaking in very cosmic terms in different time periods, which I feel like is maybe speaks less to the actual people and more to the ideas that the filmmakers want to get across. So that's sort of my initial reaction to this film. So what did you think?
While I'm thinking of it, one of my favorite differences between the book and the movie is the way the book almost reverses the narration of I can't remember his name now. The guy with the scar down his face.
Zachary,
yeah. In the book, he's the dead center of
the goat herder. The goat herder.
Yeah, the goat herder. In the book, he's the dead center of the book,
Yeah,
and
that's
everything
Zachary.
revolves around him, around that story. Not story-wise, but structure-wise. But in the movie, they reverse it. They put him bookending the movie, or movie-ending the movie, where he opens up and does like an introduction. Let me tell you the first day I met old Timothy or whatever, old Gregory or whatever the guy's name was. And then at the end, he kind of wraps it all together. And I think, old Georgie. So I knew it was something like that.
Can I just say, I'm sorry, I don't want to.
No, go ahead.
Go on, but I just want to say, if I had to go back and watch this again, I really wish I had subtitles.
Yeah.
And not just for the section in Hawaii, for every section, because there are a lot of accents, And I swear, there are times where I'm like, I know I'm supposed to be hearing what this person is saying. I cannot. I'd like rewind for a second, and be like, what? It'd be like, go back and like, it'd be like, it'd actually be one word. Like, a character would say one word, I'd be like, what? Go back. Nope, I'm not getting it. I'm not getting
Yeah.
it. I feel like that would have helped. So I'd recommend to people who haven't seen it, or people want to watch it again, I would say, watch it with subtitles, because I felt like I was missing a whole lot of dialogue.
I think
Yeah, it plays around a lot with language, and the novel does this too. Like the novel, the 6 stories are written in 6 different writing styles. In the book, the section with Zachary's story is all from his perspective, and it's all written in that futuristic pidgin English.
Right.
Like the entire story is written like that, so it really plays with language a lot, and they stick to that in the movie as well, which I like. They really stick to the different types of languages that he uses in each time period. But yeah, no, it is true. I was watching this. I have a German DVD, and the only option was to watch it with German subtitles, and I realized, unless you're really, really fluent in English, any foreigner watching this would need to see subtitles in their own language, because even English subtitles for someone for a foreigner could really get lost, because they use words and phrases that we don't use anymore, or words that the writer just made up for a futuristic society.
Yeah, going off that, the first time I watched the movie, I hadn't read the book before, so that was completely lost on me, the fact that they kept that original type of language. But now, having seen the movie again after reading the book, I really do appreciate that the language translated over. But I have to say, while I have the camera, my least favorite part of the movie was something Noah said he actually enjoyed, the way it was displayed simultaneously. I felt it was way too exhausting, the quickness of the changes. I was barely able to absorb something 1 minute before it jumps to a completely other scene. Sometimes it worked. In some situations it really worked, where they really were parallel, but sometimes they would have 1, 2, 3 almost 5 seconds apart from each other without you barely realize you switched scenes. It wasn't too much in the movie, because like I'm saying, a lot more of it worked where they were really running parallels. Where, for example, one that works really well was where Sonmi is escaping out the window on that ladder thing, and Zachary and the Prescients were climbing up the rope. Where those parallels, that parallel worked really well. But in other cases, and I can't think of an example, there was a scene where someone was in the bathroom, and then there was another scene where someone was walking through a door, and then there's a whole new scene, somewhere completely else. I'm like, what? Why are we doing these switches so quickly? At least fill in, some more information before you take me out of the 1700s. You know what I mean? Does anyone else see what I'm talking about, or did I put that in?
I actually liked that a lot about the movie, and it did happen to me more than a few times, where I was kind of like, okay, we must be cutting to the same. It's still the same time period, but a different scene, right? And then, oh no, this is. So I'd be like, you cut from
Right.
Jim Broadbent in the nursing home to him getting captured, and then you'd see Jim Broadbent in bed, and you'd be like, okay, this is this he got captured while he's back in his room. No, this is him as the composer in the 1920s. So I don't know. I actually liked that part of it, because it kind of makes, all of a sudden you start relating those two things, and again it speaks to the whole theme of cutting down these boundaries, of saying, oh, you think of really blurring these realities together, and because it makes you see, okay, I think we're in the same scene. Oh wait, no, we're in a different scene. Oh, why did they do that? Why was there no clear transition there? And I think that gets into this whole idea of what they're doing. So what they're doing with the editing is very much in line with what they're trying to get across about, breaking down these boundaries. And that's what it's such a radical thing, definitely.
Yeah, it was something that never bothered me, because just in terms of the way I think, it's very, very easy for me to have to be keeping track of several threads of thought going on at once. so there's never, and if so, during some of the quicker transitions, and it's something that, having now sat through the movie from start to finish, I think 3 times now, and then a couple times I've seen, like, I've just watched parts of it. The more I've watched it, the more I pick up, and the more I can quickly follow where the jumps are taking place. So for me, it was a question of, I like that style, and also it was never difficult for me, just because in terms of how I think, I do that myself all the time. So I was never lost when watching the movie. But again, I can understand how people could get lost.
Yeah, I'm not saying I was lost. I'm just saying it's a little exhausting, and on an emotional standpoint, I guess, where it's like, I'm not really sure. You made great points. It works well for what they're trying to do, but I'm not sure film is the proper medium for what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that is, like the movie says, and like Noah said earlier, these boundaries are just conventions, and they're trying to push those boundaries. I agree. The movie was very ambitious. It was a very ambitious undertaking, and I have to commend them for that. I don't think I can say it was a masterpiece, though. I think it was just an ambitious film that didn't reach its full potential.
Mm-hmm. I can get that. I mean, what bothers me, the reviewers, and there've been quite a lot of them, or a lot of, or audience members in general, who've jumped in on the whole this movie is racially insensitive bandwagon because they put white actors in yellowface.
I got that the second time I was watching it. I'm like, wow, that is kind of weird. And the other way around too. They put the Asian actress on, and like with freckles and red hair. That was
in whiteface.
Yeah.
Halle Berry is white in one scene. So, actually, I'd like to ask about that. What do you guys think in terms of what do you guys think of the makeup of the movie? I thought the makeup was incredible. I was never frustrated or upset with the fact that obviously. The one Asian actress, Duna May, played Sonmi. Yes, in the scene where she's supposed to be white, it is so obvious that is not a white person.
Yeah.
When Hugo Weaving is a woman, it is so obvious to see. All right, that is clearly not a natural-born woman. That is transvestite Hugo Weaving. Okay, it's obvious, and again, in the Neo Soul bit, it's very obvious. Okay, Ben Whishaw, Hugo Weaving, and just are obviously not.
I hold on a second though. I think we lost you.
But
for a
I
second.
never
just,
minded
just
that.
so we can recap for the viewers. He's saying it's a little. Some of them are really obvious race changes. But I think your point is, for the most part, the makeup was really an excellent achievement. I have to agree, the makeup was fantastic, and the whole production design was fantastic. But changing races is not insensitive, but I hope they don't do it again, is what I mean, because it didn't work.
Well, the point is, it's really to reinforce the. I mean, and this is something that the book is very subtle in terms of the theme of reincarnation.
Yeah.
And they really make it forefront here. They make it very clear. This movie is partially about the idea of reincarnation, or a similar idea, the idea of souls taking different forms and different shapes through history. So it's supposed to be meaningful that we can tell that it's the same actors and actresses, because these are either the same souls, and that's indicated by the birthmark, or they're the same basic forces and the same basic dynamics replaying themselves throughout history. I mean, in terms of Hugo Weaving and the characters he plays,
they're all pretty
like for example, some people, for example, Owan Citizen, in his videos on this movie, he argued that the filmmakers were trying to say that the actors themselves represent individual souls. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think the birthmark represents a single soul. At least that's the intention in the book, and my assumption is that Tikwer, the Wachowskis, did not actively change that, and the actors themselves really represent certain dynamics. Like Hugo Weaving's characters represent not so much the same soul being reincarnated, but the same dynamic of a malevolent force that seeks to manipulate and dominate to its own advantage.
That's certainly one interpretation. I don't know if there's conclusive evidence for that.
I would have to dig up. I mean, we could probably dig up every single interview they've done about the movie, and maybe somewhere in there they say exactly what they meant. But
I would argue that it was the same soul reincarnating.
That each actor was meant to
each
represent
actor's
an individual soul. Okay.
That's what I would argue. But again, these are interpretations, and I just want to present both sides to the viewers and listeners.
And it's interesting, though, you bring up Hugo Weaving, because definitely most of the characters he plays are that kind of, very much someone who's in control, who is abusing their power. But you have the one scene in the 1920s where it's a very short scene where he's basically dismissed by Jim Broadbent's character because there was an affair between him and his wife. Mm-hmm. And didn't work out because Hugo Weaving's character was Jewish. So
no, the wife
that one scene, he's actually made to be the victim.
No, the wife was Jewish.
In the movie, it does make it seem like he's Jewish, but I'm not sure what the real case is. I thought he was Jewish.
I have to look at that. I thought they were, because he says that couldn't work. So then why would he be able to marry the... why would he be able to marry someone Jewish?
I thought the implication was that the wife was Jewish, and that's why she leaves, because she's offended that there is a German there at a time when anti-Semitism was, of course, being built up in Germany.
Hey, no, while we're on this topic, why did they change the location in the book to in the film? In the movie, it's in Edinburgh, up in Scotland, right? And in the book, it's in
Belgium.
Yeah. Why was that
somewhere in Belgium? Here's my thought. It seems pretty clear, and again, after 3 times in watching the movie, I'm still not entirely certain. But I'm pretty certain that for the composer story and the retirement home story, I think that's supposed to be the same building.
Oh.
And so I think that was an active choice to use the production design as opposed to the actors or the dialogue or the editing, using the production design to draw another parallel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
In the one story, Jim Broadbent's character imprisons someone or tries to imprison Ben Whissaw's character within that compound, within that building. And later, Jim Broadbent's character himself is imprisoned within that same structure. Almost as an act of karma. He tried to hold their will at that same place in the past life, so now he's being held in will as punishment.
Right. All right, you guys are right. I don't know why.
That's my interpretation.
Yeah, that was my bad.
Oh, did you check, Justin?
Yeah. He's the one. He's German. Yeah. I definitely misheard that.
The movie, it is. I know exactly what you're talking about, though.
This is why subtitles would help.
Yeah. No, but you're right, because I just rewatched it today as well, and I thought he was Jewish. Just rewatching the movie today, and I didn't remember it well enough from the book to remember. So,
yeah.
That's So let's talk. We talked a little bit about. Did you want to say anything else on makeup or production design? Good makeup, good production design. I think we can move on from that.
Yeah. I just want to say, because one of the things I just want to.
No, go ahead.
On the makeup. One of the things I noticed, and I was trying to figure out how intentional it was some people look much better in the makeup and look more convincing than others.
Mm-hmm.
For example, maybe the worst makeup job in the movie is Hugh Grant as in 2012 as Jim Broadbent's character's brother. I thought that was just like abysmal. Like he looked really bad, and like the fact that he was in like when you have Jim Broadbent talking to him directly in the one scene where he visits him, it actually it's just really strange. You look at Jim Broadbent, he looks real, and then you have Hugh Grant right next to him. And it's like you almost feel like if you just like reached out, you just like come back your hand will come back with just a gob of makeup.
Yeah, and you're right.
So I don't know. I mean, because some people look much more convincing. Like for example, I think Dunabai doesn't look as convincing in the Hawaii scene as say Halle Berry looks in the 1920s.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's really interesting because I really felt like some of it worked and other times it didn't. I was trying to figure out if that was intentional or if it was just like, you know, just the
Um,
nature of the beast.
I think it was a mixture of being intentional because they do want, most of the time at least, they do want people to recognize who these actors and actresses are. It may also have been a question of budget. They really had to fight to get a lot of independent donors to fund this movie. They might have had to cut strings at some point. And so the makeup people might have said, "Hey, you want this to look good? We're going to need X number of dollars." Well, sorry, our donors are only giving us Y.
Right.
So that could have been it as well. I just want to offer one more comment, and it's in defense of the yellow face thing. I'm not the only one that's pointed this out in the movie. It is heavily implied that the Neo Soul bit is definitely about a highly stratified society. It's an empire basically. The implication is there are
You know,
Yeah,
the elites.
I heard Neo Soul is an empire, and then I don't know where you went from there.
It's an empire, and there are suggestions that the elites, the people Union is fighting against, are no longer ethnic Koreans. Number one, number two, and this is a strength of the book. In the book, it is very clearly established that this is a world where, almost like with Repo the Genetic Opera, plastic surgery is a fashion thing. If you are wealthy, if you're part of the oligarchy, you get all sorts of physical surgeries just to make yourself look weird and different. So that's my defense of the fact that the non-Asian actors, the ones in that scene to be wearing this heavy yellow face, they obviously do not look like natural born people, at least to our eyes, because partly they're living way in the future. They're living way in the future in a time where everyone is surgically altering their appearance. So just right there, no one from that time period would look normal. And number two, it is also implied that these people are not actually ethnic Koreans, and that they may have originally tried to hide that. And then that's another reason for the plastic surgery, to hide the fact that, hey, we're aliens, we're foreign aliens basically trying to control these people. And I'm going to leave you with that for just a second because my computer is about to die, and I forgot to plug it in. Hang on.
Okay.
Continue.
That might explain some things. I suppose then we can, if you... I have to say, Tom Hanks is an amazing actor in anything he's in. I just love watching him. And really, the movie to me, like, it was a showcase of many of these actors, or many of these actors' talents.
Okay.
In fact, I've heard criticisms about this movie being too heavy on like Tom Hanks and Halle Berry. That I don't know if you want to respond to that.
well, I think the fact that the whole unifying story of, because by the end it is about Zachary, and I totally don't know her character's name.
Just called her Prescient.
Yeah. It's really about them. So you're seeing them throughout the different, So I really feel like if that is what the movie is focusing on, it makes sense based on the ending. The fact that these two people come together, and I think it's not an accident that you have, white and black and all these other, it's not just a race thing, it's a class thing as well. I mean, her character in the Hawaii scene, she actually, she's not supposed to share their technology with the
Valley people. The Valley
people. Yeah. So I think, if that's the case, if there is a focus on them, I think it makes a lot of sense. And you look at the stories that that we're telling you see their characters coming together. It's interesting because like I don't know, I gotta say I feel like I felt like they were convincing in some cases and not as convincing in others. And I'm thinking particularly of Tom Hanks as I don't know if he's supposed to be a former one, but he's like a British gangster who wrote this book.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that
that
was just funny.
really took me out of that scene. And
I found that really
I guess I'm trying to wrestle with it. Like, are they supposed to be convincing, or is it supposed to be this whole idea of breaking down these boundaries and just seeing,
In the case of Cavendish, I feel like there's a lot more leeway with that because it really is very comic.
It's very broad.
That is the comic story.
Yes.
Yeah, that is the really comic story.
So
Right.
I don't mind
I love the
Hank's
one-line
interpretation
where he
of
falls
that
out of the
character.
window.
Mhm.
I love the one line where he falls out of the window and he says, "Official cause of injury listed on the hospital registry, pussy."
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about when Cavendish is discovered
Yeah.
by the parents. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love that line.
But I also have to say, if you were to take one story out that you could then spend more time in depth with the other stories, that would be the one I chose, the Cavendish story, because I felt like it didn't cross threads with enough of the other stories for it to really be an effective effective story to spend time on. And I said that to my girlfriend when I was reading the books. I'm like, all of these stories are great, and the Cavendish story is good in itself too. It's like in this humorish kind of old person's reflecting on life kind of way. But I think if the movie were to be remade, or if they were going to take another try at the book, I would take that out and then be able to focus more on the relationships of the other stories. That's just my unpopular opinion.
Yeah, it is. It really is the lone man out. Because in the case of the composer story and the nuclear reactor story, you actually do have a character that crosses both of those stories.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of Sonmi's story and Zachary's story, those cross very, very directly because Zachary worships Somni directly as a result of what happens in that story.
And Somni is almost
and then even
for the fall. There's that kind of
that is
as well.
That is heavily implied. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we never get all the details, but that is heavily implied.
Yeah.
That presages the fall. And even the Adam Ewing story in the Pacific Journal.
That would be my second choice.
It's not. I think the addition of those stories just allows for more layers between the stories to occur. Like I said, the idea that Jim Broadbent's character in the composer scene imprisoned someone, and then he himself is imprisoned a lifetime later, or maybe 2 lifetimes. It's never made clear. And that's the basic point of each of the stories, to offer parallels to the other stories, from which you can draw a lot of material to just think about,
And I guess it's interesting because I feel like with the Timothy Cavendish story, I see what they're going for in terms of like really taking what you have, because what you have in a lot of these other stories is you have a scale to a lot of this, and you're really, I feel like in this story, you're really taking that scale and shrinking it down. And I think that's done on purpose. I think what you're doing with that is you're trying to say, look, these huge things that happen, like for example, fighting for freedom and Neo Soul, that happens even today in the smallest of locations. It can just be about trying to get out of a nursing home. There's still the essential qualities of freedom and also the idea of like the story really takes a turn where it's like, first you just think the thread is about him getting the money because he does not want to get beaten up by these gangsters. So you think that's what it's all about. And then all of a sudden it's almost like a left turn where it's like, okay, no. Now it's just about him getting out of the nursing home. And honestly, once he gets out of the nursing home, he apparently doesn't have to worry about the gangsters anymore, which I find a little incredible. But I think that's what they're doing with that story, and I wonder if it could have been. I feel like that story was like really going for broad comedy, and I just didn't feel like a lot of it worked. But I appreciate the effort and what they're going for in terms of shrinking down the scale.
Mm-hmm.
I think also that story is meant primarily as a reference point for us, because the book just came out in 2004, and we're talking about this in 2014. The movie came out in 2012, so that's really meant as a reference point for this generation, this era in which the book was written, because he points out he's coming from a very affluent first world Western society, which is where most of the people are who've read this book. That's where the people came from who made the movie, and that's where most of the people who've seen the movie and are talking about it live. So I think it's really in the book, it's a reference point for us, the readers, and in the movie, it's a reference point for us, the viewers. Because as he points out, in our civilization, when he says that, he means this civilization, the Western civilization we currently live in. Freedom is the word we toss around for everything. Oh, you can't do that. That limits my freedom. Oh, we're a free society. Oh, people should have more freedom. But we do live in a time where the word freedom is tossed around with nary a thought. And I think history is primarily there as a direct reminder to us. Like, look, we don't have the first fucking clue what freedom means, because none of us have ever really been deprived, or most of us have never really been deprived of it. And it's only then that you realize what freedom actually is, when you no longer have it. I think that story is really just meant as a shout out to us.
But is freedom the main thing in the other stories? I only really get that in his story, in Sunny's story, and in part in the Adam Ewing story. I don't necessarily get it too much in the Frobisher story or the nuclear reactor story.
Well, with the Frobisher story, because he's a runaway homosexual,
he's actually bisexual.
Okay, bisexual, but no, even that was at that time was
right.
No. If everyone finds out, you will be blacklisted. So his freedom is curtailed. It is severely curtailed. Because his choices, everyone around him forcibly restricts his choices to the point where he feels that suicide is the only way out.
But see, this is what I think my problem with the movie is. It is way too dense. Now that sounds like a good thing, but I don't think it fits in the medium of film. I don't know. There's just too much story, too much literature behind it, and which is why the first time I watched the movie, I said to myself, I have to read this book because what was going on in the story, what they were trying to get at, it sounds really neat, but it didn't. A film was a bad way to deliver everything that it was trying to deliver. I think that's how I feel about the movie, and it's really true. The book covers what they were trying to cover in the movie, but in a much more paced out way, more literature way.
Yeah, no, I think the big advantage the movie has is the movie can supplement the words of the novel with the power of visuals.
Absolutely.
Doors opening, chases, phone calls, bits of dialogue, all of which do come from the book, and those parallels are all in the book. The movie can make those visual. And I personally like the way in which the movie uses the power of visuals and music and editing to really bring to life the parallels that are already there in the text and that are there to find. But the movie tries its hand at visualizing them, at giving us an image.
I would say then the movie's best as a companion to the book. I think that's the best I'm going to be able to say. To the question, the name of this video, by the way, is Cloud Atlas a good movie? I have to say, as a standalone, it's fine. But as a companion to the book, it's really worth watching.
Justin, what do you think?
Just overall, like as a as an adaptation or just as its own
It's
thing.
kind
I
of a
guess
good
that's kind of
movie.
what we're. Yeah, I guess again, having not read the book, I enjoyed it. It's interesting because I feel this sometimes watching, not all the time, but sometimes when you're watching a movie based on a book, you can start to see what you think might have been more thoroughly explored in the book.
Hmm.
You say like, oh wow, they really like that was kind of random. Why did they have that character? Oh, I bet that character probably had more to do in the book, and that's why they felt the need to include him. Um, it's interesting because I really feel like some of my favorite movies have been based on books. Sometimes they're books I've read, other times they're not. I really do feel like you can adapt anything, but in the process of adaptation, it's going to change. So, and sometimes that works in its own way, and other times you just kind of like, that really worked better on the page. Um, I feel like there are things that the movie can do in terms of in terms of the frequency of the cross cutting between the stories. That's something that, from what I'm hearing from you guys, it sounds like the book was a little more,
Less
even though
cross-cutting.
it kept between them, it was still, yeah, like there was a definite structure. Whereas here, it's like it kind of feels like you're going between, from this time to this time. There's all these different, it's not as obviously structured.
Right.
And so that's something that you can do with film, and just like I think the look of this, like you were saying though, the visual component. I think Neo Soul looks fantastic. Like the special effects and the production design in that segment were just amazing. But I guess, yeah, I guess I'm kind of left thinking, like, okay, I wonder if certain relationships were explored more in the book. That's one thing I definitely noticed in this that I felt was like, and that kind of contributed to my sort of emotional distance from it.
There's a whole emotional in the Frobisher story specifically. There is an entire subplot. Not just there's the whole thing about Frobisher having sex with the composer's wife. That's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also the
But
daughter,
there's
which
also
is not
an
in the
entire
movie.
subplot. There's an entire subplot with his daughter, which I don't know if I would say it's central to his story, but it informs other aspects of his character, and that also reinforces the part of his character that really is he really doesn't care about someone being a guy or a girl. Like he's in terms of his sexuality, at least, he is someone who he is someone with
I don't know what you were getting at, but while we've lost you, I wanted to say that I like that part about Frobisher's story because
that's part.
because in the book, are you back? Okay, I was saying in the book, a lot of the time Frobisher seems
I think I am. Am I?
yes, I think you are. Let me finish this thought before we go back to what you were saying. In the book, I like the part with the with the daughter because in the book he seems so high and mighty, and like so full of himself, pretentious and all that. And then he fell for this for the daughter, and it was like a fall from grace, and that leads into his ultimate fate. So I liked seeing his character arc. That was nice.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, he didn't really have much of a development in the movie.
Very closely tied.
Okay,
goodbye.
Wow, never had problems.
Yeah, it must be. I don't know. I don't know what it must be. German internet is having some wire difficulties. We should be wrapping up soon, though. Do you have Noah?
I have not. Well, I haven't tried to. I haven't tried to answer the question yet. So.
All right, go ahead. If you don't get lost.
Man, it's really bad now.
Me?
I can. Yes, maybe.
Am I lost?
No, we got you now. Go ahead, answer the
Hello?
question.
Yeah,
I am talking. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
that came through.
Okay. Anywho, so as I was saying, you guys seem to be arguing that some aspects of the movie work really well. Some aspects of the movie bring across what the book was trying to, and some aspects, at least what Casey's saying, some aspects of the movie don't quite translate as well as, at least as well as you would have liked, or as you might have done. Um, as far as my own opinion, I said at the beginning, I think this is a fantastic movie. I think this is an excellently made.
Excellently made movie is what I'm going to guess he was going to say.
Yeah, that's what
I
I was
don't
guessing.
know what he was going to say.
It works perfectly fine. I think it works perfectly fine in terms of a book adaptation. I think it's perfectly fine as a standalone movie. But I do agree that I do agree that
Okay, he agrees. Let's see.
Casey's right. He should always agree that Casey's right. That's just a general rule of thumb.
Oh man.
Oh, he's gone.
And
And he's gone. I'll tell you guys what I will do. I will have him write up a finisher to that, and I will post it in the video like note thing right on my face. Look at my face for
Yeah.
what he says. Boop. Anyway, thank you for watching us again. We will be back again soon. We have big plans coming this summer, so stay tuned, Internet.